Where'd you go?
I went out to East Texas to drop I got some family in town, Massachusetts.
Okay.
We planned a vacation months ago. My parents live out there. They have some houses in the lake.
I can't remember. I thought maybe you said the first last time, so I drew the line up, but I'm wrong.
Very big. Small fishing lake was great. Kind of hanging out, making us live.
Rather go first.
So I can go first and then just let you take on.
Okay, yeah, we don't have a lot either, obviously, but yeah, I really don't have like a preference. I get the ball rolling, you know.
Yeah. Get the ball rolling. That's right.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hold on.
We're still missing two.
I'm having something happening here.
And then. Just waiting for Chief.
Okay, no problem. Like your necklace,
Oh, thank you.
I
Kind of flash.
to tell you that, I did too.
it's just the right amount of flash, you know, still flash.
Thank you.
What's changed is how we put it together. Just take a flip flop, swap here.
Apologize for you.
And you totally off balanced us.
Right.
Good to do that.
Hopefully you're doing something fun on vacation or something.
It was, I was a family in town and went out to East Texas. My parents live up there. Nice little lake.
Good.
Yeah, it was great. I'm sad not to be here.
Well, welcome back. Okay. So we're on session 7. We've got many more dates to come, so hopefully we'll get a lot done within the next few days. Still have all these dates, and I guess as we continue to say, as soon as we get closer to that week of the 11th, we'll probably, I think the plan is for the whole week.
We're putting aside the whole week for that, yes.
This did not change from last time. We didn't TA any additional articles. I think we are pretty close to some, especially 28. But this has not changed from the last update. proposals received from the AFA. This was added to a little bit more from last week. And again, this is not, doesn't state what side of the table it's on, just the articles that we've seen. And honestly, it's almost all of them. So we're getting close to have touched almost every article in the contract. The city of Austin has responded to these articles. There's like 4 or 5 that are kind of part of the fiscal package, so that'll all be responded to as part of the fiscal package. And we've received obviously the word is spacing me. The wages, it starts with a C.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Conceptual.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you just mentioned we received the conceptual.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Articles on the AFA side of the table. So we had presented some articles last time around. Y'all appeared to have verbally showed us on the screen many articles, but the only one that we actually received via email was 26, so it's not on that list.
Yes. That's correct.
Y'all were continuing to tweak it based on the conversation we had last session. So I don't know if we're gonna get any of those today back or.
From us?
Yes.
Yeah, you might. I think, well, let's wait till my presentation.
Sure.
Yes, you
Sure.
will. The answer is yes.
We have 18 ready for today. We are also talking about Article 17. There was that one section 4 that was proposed to be entirely deleted. And I think we're there. Just want to confirm with the team, and then we can propose that later in the afternoon or something like that.
Okay.
But for sure, we'll have 18.
And we may have an 18 ready today too.
Okay.
And I bet there are going to be different sections we're looking at. I would guess.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Okay. Articles that we have not received proposals from either side. 2 definitions we're saving till the end. 24, I believe we will expect something from y'all. I believe also you mentioned 19 last time around. They didn't have any substantial changes, just hadn't gotten to it yet.
Well, I guess I can talk about this right now if it's okay.
Sure.
That is what we said. And then we saw Article 17, the way you guys did it.
Okay.
And the way you all did it, that you're contemplating what we didn't think you would contemplate. But to us, I know Sarah will disagree with this, we consider that reverse bargaining.
I disagree.
Yeah, and I know what you're gonna say, because I've already looked at the tapes and reviewed it, so you can say it again,
I disagree with it as well.
but, we feel like that was an article that we spent a lot of time and money. We think it's an article that's been a very good, partnership that's been very successful. And the city got tremendous value of the bargain over the consent decree for us agreeing to not oppose it. And so it's like y'all got the value of the bargain and we didn't anymore if we were to agree to that. And that doesn't seem fair. When you're talking about trying to be fair at the table and get along, it doesn't seem fair to us. So I want to be candid about that, as politely as I can be. And so if we're going to look at broad at things, if we're going to go back 20 years and look at things, or 25 years and look at things that we may like to change, if we take off the notion of, it's 2022, hey, we got a financial expert here, we've got PhDs in the department, we've got attorneys in the department. We might look at a lot of things differently. So it's not I'm just signaling to you that depending on how serious you are on 17, it could change our outlook on other aspects of the contract we normally wouldn't be looking at. So that would put the civilians maybe not almost ready to do, but maybe
Okay.
a little more thought be put into it.
Okay. So probably not seeing civilian today for now.
I'm just saying if we're going to open up the context of what we might change to everything's back on the table regardless of past bargains, then everything's back on the table and we need to think of it more broadly. And so I don't know that we'd be coming with a proposal on that one right away. I guess we'll see how things settle out, I'm really trying to be polite and candid about it at the same time.
Sure.
I think it's the only way we get to deal with the table. We have to stay cordial, we have to keep a good relationship, we also have to be honest about how we're feeling about different things, and that's just how we're feeling about it right now, so I thought I'd mention that to you all.
And what about 17? Are you all planning on a counter proposal on 17?
Yes, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you guys react to it, again, I know, like, for instance, and so it's not one-sided, right? I mean, I know, for instance, when we say, we look into the health insurance trust, I can tell by looking at the side of the table, there's almost like, in some level, almost insulted by it, because the city's done really good on health insurance, they really have, and we didn't mean it that way, and maybe you didn't mean in 17 what you did, the way you did, but I think we need some more conversation to figure out where we're at, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
But I'm absolutely isn't one-sided. I think it's very natural in negotiations for each side to take the other one to be a little more cynical,
True.
And we don't want to do that. We really want to have a good relationship. We really want to be candid and polite about our true interests, concerns. I know you guys do too. So.
True, yes, and really, the intent to propose 17 was not to be insulting, and we certainly don't feel that, or our position is that it's not reverse bargaining by any means, but we are certainly open to continuing to have the discussion, and we look forward to your proposal today, so we'll have more discussion.
And I'm trying to put it in that light, believe it or not. I just can't get there. No, I'm kidding.
Articles actively being discussed, I need to add 17 on here, but this didn't really change since last time. I believe last time you also mentioned that you took 7 off of the in conflict, so I took the little asterisks off of it.
Good.
I
mean, it could go back on, but I think we're getting close,
I won't hold you to a PowerPoint, but yeah, so we're still discussing a lot of things.
And I think it's noteworthy and positive there hasn't been anything else put in this conflict category for some time, so.
True, and I think that there are things that can be taken out that we're pretty darn close on, such as 26. I didn't even include 28 in there because I think we're pretty darn close on that. It's just, a matter of how wordy we want to be.
28, standards?
Is savings clause. And
I'm sorry, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe I sent you a correct TA on that, or I sent you a.
I think we're close. Candor, I read through it again today, and that's an additional question I didn't have this morning earlier.
Okay.
So I think we're close, but I may need to talk to our attorney one more time on that. But I think we're close on it.
Okay. And that's it for us. So of course we're here today and Monday and twice, and then on Thursday of next week. So we're here continuing to talk and see what we can do.
Okay, sounds great. Can I switch over?
Yes, sir.
You might have noticed the clouds have gotten smaller because the vision's getting clearer.
Okay.
They're now cumulus.
Not really putting hand shaking yet, but it happened. I think we're congruent on all these items. I think you're right. We didn't do anything last time, but recognition we did the time before. But I do think we're making progress and working through some things that are close to TA. Savings clause, I still left it there, even though I noticed another question that I have on that, and I'm going to ask that to y'all, and then get the response. And I'll probably have to have Matt look at that. But I still think we're close. We're just trying to do our due diligence on the last question we had. I just wanted to check on the information request.
So Sarah responded to you.
Sent it last night. There was one that they're still working on, but I sent.
Oh, I didn't see an email come from you.
Yeah, I sent it.
Okay,
last
well,
night.
I apologize. I'll take a look at that and we'll talk about that later. And then I was wondering on the wage proposals, we're getting along, and I was wondering what we would like to propose is an exchange of wage proposals and set a date. And I think how that could work is, and, it's a little novel, and you guys may not want to do it, but my thought is that there's some strategy to wage proposals, right? Whether you go first or second, or whether you go high or low. I mean, everybody has different strategies. And you play off the other person's strategy. What I'm suggesting is we bring our wage proposal, you bring your wage proposal, we exchange hard copies, and we come in the room, we give them. And I think that we could be a little more pure in what we're thinking and what you're thinking without playing off each other. And I think that might have some benefit in trying to, find where we end up. So that's our suggestion. I think we would be ready to do it next week. I think probably just say Thursday to just be on the safe side so we can make sure that we have all of our T's crossed and I's dotted. And then the other thing, I think we'd be ready Monday if you guys are really motivated, but let's just say Thursday to give everybody one more time. The other thing is, you gave us the comparable report, and we're very curious to find out what your side of the table thinks that says and what it means to y'all. We're looking at it, and we're trying to draw our own inferences, but I think it'd be very valuable if we could find out what inferences your side of the table is drawing from that. So it'd be, I guess we're requesting, if possible, as a presentation, either today or Monday, I guess, before the wage proposal, so we can get a better idea of, and like we talked about different sides of the table, different perspectives and bias. I think that'd be helpful for us before our wage proposal to see your interpretations and some of the inferences you're drawing from, if possible.
We're definitely working on a presentation. It won't be ready today though.
Okay.
But we are working on a presentation.
And if it can't be ready Monday, we could move Monday to Tuesday maybe. I mean, that's talk to my team if that's possible, but I think that'd be an important presentation to get before the exchange of proposals if y'all end up agreeing to that. Again, we're just side of the table asking for some stuff and see what y'all come up with. On management side of the table, I put 7 on kind of both sides of the table as the dues article, because Sarah, you were talking about maybe doing a report, talking to them about a canned report or something. And then I think we talked about reducing the scope of the indemnification clause a little bit to see if that's acceptable to y'all.
Yeah, so, and so I was waiting to get the data set that you would actually be looking for in the report to talk.
Oh, you're right, you sure did.
So happy to talk with them and see.
Yeah, so we'll get some in writing, and here's why I think it may be harder to do than maybe we think in a report, because it's gonna be very specific thing. Like Tim's gets a report from them, and it's gonna show person X didn't have dues deducted. And then, their report is gonna show the same thing. Person X doesn't have dues deducted. Now they'd have to add something else to that. They'd have to say they haven't got dues deducted because of Y. And that's what Tim calls to find out what Y is, right? So it seems like a lot more work if they have to do it for every item, because some of the Ys we already know. We know that this person turned in a form, we got a copy of it, we know what the reason is, we don't need them to spend time on that one. And so maybe the report's a good idea, and maybe the report's not a good idea, but we can get you the information we need, but that's basically it. It's usually a phone call that lasts probably half a minute.
No, and I agree with that. Maybe the report's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of wanted to ask them what the data set that you're looking for, because if it's, some of the things that he was saying is, well, if somebody, is out on HIPAA, we don't need to know why they're out, we just need to know that they're on leave. So maybe they could, and like you said, one time might be easier if they have a set moving forward that they could always produce of employees who are out on leave.
Yeah.
Or whatever that might be. So whatever, historically issues that have arisen, a report, a set of data that could answer your questions without going into the HIPAA issues. If we can figure out what exactly.
And I think the frequency of requests too, right? I mean,
I'm sorry.
The frequency of the request would determine whether a report or a phone call might be the most appropriate. So we can figure out
quarterly or monthly or paycheck by paycheck. It just, I
imagine there's some pay periods that there's no question, so
yeah,
we don't need somebody to work out a report. And there's some pay question. It's just really discrepancies. We don't have a ton of them. We just get them sometimes.
Yeah, and what I'm hoping for is that nobody ever has to work on a report after they get something set. So that they push the button and then it just gets, you guys
that
can
would be
figure it out.
great.
Sent
Like
to you.
if they logged that reason, then it'd be probably easy to capture a report.
That's
But if they don't
that's what
log
I'm
that
hoping.
reason, they got to research
Yes.
every time, and that seems like a lot of work.
And it may make no sense at all, and they may be watching and saying, "Shut up, sir."
Yeah.
Don't volunteer that.
Okay.
But I want to see if we can work it out that way, because that would be a nice workaround if we can.
No, I appreciate
Instead of
that.
having
I think that's a great way to approach it, and I didn't remember to send you that spec, so we'll get that spec to you. Jim, do you mind writing up something and getting that to me, please? ABL is on your side table, leave, always work, overtime, promotions, entire agreement. Although, yes, only because I sent it to y'all.
Yeah.
Day yesterday, the day before. We can respond to management rights and maintenance standards right after this presentation if y'all want to do willing to see that. Dues, I could show you if you want me to, what we came up with in terms of limiting, our ideas on limiting indemnification. But it's not a really done proposal until we find out if we're gonna do the report or the phone call or whatever. Civil service, we probably have some additional questions on. Shared communications, I believe, I haven't shown my team yet, but I came up with a way that limits this overtime clause to the point where it's something, I think, reviewing the tapes, I'm always gonna blame Sarah for all the bad stuff,
That's
You're used to that, right? Yeah.
We'll just put it in that
It
way.
seems like you're signaling that, hey, we don't want the situation where you just invite people and get overtime, and we don't either, and that's not what we're implying, but that was helpful actually, so we tried to limit that. Cadets, we're still suggesting we go back to the original language. Matt just said your stuff is too wordy. Just kidding, he didn't say that.
Touche, Matt.
We try, no, so we believe one thing, and you all believe another, and that's where we left it originally, that's probably where we need to leave it. We were hoping we could come to some other agreement maybe, but the way I look at it, you tell me if I'm wrong, is if we think that we're right, and there's some thing in cadet that they're in our bargaining unit that we should be trying to satisfy, we'll file a contract agreement with the arbitrator to work it out, right?
Well, I think that the language, the reason that language is in there, the agree to disagree language ended up being in there so we could ultimately have an overall agreement. And so I get what you're putting in there. You believe, the association believes that cadets are part of the bargaining unit and the city does not. And so all we did was just explain a little more in detail as to how we got to why we believe our own position and included that language in there. I understand your proposal, just let's go back to the same old agree to disagree language, and we haven't had a chance to discuss that, but we will, so.
And we discussed it, your language, we didn't think it added anything to it, and we didn't think it was helpful, we didn't find the explanation helpful to our side, so.
No, it would not be.
So.
It's helpful to our side.
Well, that could be the reason why we didn't see it that way then, so it's a good reason. But that's still our proposal. So take a look at it, see what you all think. And we really need to put another one in the TA column, so just really think about that more than what you wrote. It's very important. Means and standards we talked about now. Savings clause we're very close on. I just have an additional question I got at that, but I probably have a question for you on that. EMS merger we'll be talking about during caucus. Termination of agreement. We still have some differences on that, but I have some questions that we'd like to talk further on that. We're still working at wellness. I'm going to try to actually put some time in that this weekend to get it started on, so we can take it sooner rather than later. And then y'all have a proposal on investigations. I think we will too later on. I believe they'll, who knows, but I think they'll be under different sections, so we'll see. And that's it. So, one of the standards, excuse me, man, rights. Well, in drug testing, we're probably pretty close on. And just so you know, I don't know that we will be able to show it later on today, but in concept, we tried to take some of the last discussions from y'all and EMS. It looked like there was an agreement, and moved it into our original wording of our drug testing. And then we are trying to also add in blood as an option from the employee. So you can do saliva or blood by their choice. And that's really all the changes that we made, that we saw from what it looked like y'all agreed to with EMS. Now I realize you've already said that there's some things like arson, that do need to be straight back to cell. I saw that in Sarah's face immediately.
Well, and just
Exactly, I had arson investigator written on my forehead, I did, you were drilling right in there.
And we're not trying to bypass any of that. We just think that y'all can identify those sections and provide us a proposal that those things.
yeah, and just, and I know Sarah mentioned this already last time, that proposal that EMS currently hasn't actually been officially provided as a proposal yet. And
I agree, and that's why I've chosen my wording and said that the item, the article, it looks like y'all may have agreement on, as opposed to a TA or an approval. So I'm gonna send these to you later. I don't have these changes made, but this will be pretty obvious what they are when I put them up. So, we listened to your explanation on the adding of the wording to management rights, and we'll be striking all that wording for all the reasons we talked about last time. You know, this article's been around a long time. We think that words matter. When you're talking about it, it doesn't change anything. When we talk about it, it puts it in proper perspective. That can be a matter of opinion. And we would rather just, unless we're really ready to quantify every single word we put in this thing to make sure we understand the exact meaning, we would propose striking the wording on this. Now, on the other side, on the maintenance and standards, we're ready to accept all your wording. We're convinced about your arguments of putting in a standard for past practice. You answered how I thought we would answer on unequivocal. We'll argue that. We'll just let the arbitrator decide. That's what we hire him for. And so we're convinced on all of that, and we're ready to accept all these changes on maintenance and standards. I hope you can see we're making a good faith. You know, those articles probably need to be put out together to kind of balance off each other, and that's our reasons. And we'll send you, the copies that have our proposal dates and everything on it as soon as we get done, because y'all can decide that, if you want to accept it or not. And then on dues, this isn't really a proposal, but I want to show you the wording. That we're coming up with on indemnification. And I just want your feedback if you can provide it now to see if it's getting close. So I think what I did on this, I didn't. Not on this one. This one I didn't get the right one. Oh, looks like that. We're trying to limit the scope to a member bringing an action against the city or us based on the change of a deduction. And we thought that's what we heard in discussion with you all. And we're, I think it provides a liability to us. I think we could make the case that there should be a shared legal defense, but we're not. Out of fairness, we think if a member brings an action against us, we are fine to indemnify that. Again, not because we're actually not protecting our liability to some extent here, but we do think it's fair. And so that's what we're willing to do that. I can send this to you just as long as you realize it's not really a proposal, it's just a, oh, by the way, are you getting our videos and are you able to get the updates and everything from that link that we sent y'all?
I haven't looked at the last link. We'll check, but I'm assuming so, yes.
So that one link I sent you always gets updated?
Right.
Okay.
And I know that that's the case, I just have not had an opportunity to go back.
I just want to make sure it's working in case it's not for some reason. And then I kind of messed up the upper part of this so badly. When you get it, eventually, I think we're going to go from your last proposal rather than my last proposal, because I just goofed up so many things.
Yeah, it kind of looks
I'm
like
gonna have
that's a
it
hybrid of the
articulated up
different
above.
ones,
Yeah. I just really, I don't know what I was thinking that day, so. But when I put it in, I'll articulate, I'm working off of that proposal for this date as opposed to mine, so we kind of keep it straight. But right now, until we hear about the report, I'll send you the indemnification language just so you can review it, but we're not really making a proposal on this today. Now the savings clause, I just had a question. Probably so obvious to you all, but to me it wasn't. Okay, so my understanding of savings clause is something happens in the legal environment, court ruling or whatever, and makes something illegal in the contract. And clearly none of us want to do something that's illegal. So the savings clause basically says we don't have to do that part, right? the city or our side. That's fine. And the parties shall meet as soon as possible to agree to a substitute provision. If the parties are unable to agree to a substitute provision within 30 days following the commencement, then the matter shall be postponed until the next bargaining session. So that's the part I have a little bit of concern with. I mean, I'm not trying to write bargaining arbitration in here, really not, but shouldn't there be a little more protection on that lost part that we can go to, I don't know, open up the contract and talk about it or whatever. It just seems like when your next contract, it could be a major part of the benefit of the bargain. Or saying because the legal environment changed, we're just not going to do anything if we can't get to agreement a mutual agreement within 30 days.
So are you talking about the charter amendment?
What's that?
Are you talking about the charter amendment?
No, I'm just talking about, I mean, we could put the charter amendment in,
No,
but I know you guys don't want this, I'm just like trying not to, right? But, I mean, how do we, so let's say a big item is, for whatever reason, unconstitutional, Texas Constitution, so we can't do it, and you can't do it either. And we're agreeable with that. But there's ways that we could get part of the benefit of the bargain by agreeing to certain things mutually. And let's say, just to be fair, we don't want to because we don't want to, we think it's a benefit to you, so we just don't want to do it. And the other side can say the same thing, right? I'm just saying, we agreed to something concept before. It seems like we should have a procedure where we get to agreement, not just we try 30 days and it just goes away.
Well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the point of the savings clause, that's an afterthought. The point of the savings clause is to make sure that the rest of the contract is still in effect, even if a court or the legislature declares part of it unconstitutional or invalid for whatever reason. So the kind of afterthought, and it's always been in there, is, but hey, even on this one, let's sit down, let's see if we can work something out. If we can't work something out, in a fairly short order, then we'll go back to 143 till the next session.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's as simple as that. It's not a matter of us doing new language. This was merely clarification. It wasn't changing how it is. This is how it's always been.
Yeah, the savings clause is sort of a provision where, like if you imagine like a little Jenga tower, right? So the court comes in and takes that little piece out, it's not gonna fall. We're gonna still have the rest of the contract. That's typically what the savings clause does. Y'all have a little bit of uniqueness in here in that there's actually language in there that allows for the parties to come together and create a substitute provision. That's not typically common. So really, we weren't trying to change anything substantive, merely just cleaning it up a little bit and clarifying it. And it seemed like Matt was okay with that.
He is.
Yeah.
All right. But I had a question because I totally agree with you what the savings clause main purpose is. I just have this other interest that if we can't reach an agreement on it within 30 days, I'm not so sure the solution should just be to wait for the next contract. But, I appreciate y'all's response on that. I'll talk to Matt. Maybe that's just the way it is, but.
Yeah, and I don't know, since you never know what could happen, I feel like it's probably very unlikely that.
That's the thing.
It's very unlikely, and so kind of my hesitance to put something that's specific in there is that there may be no way to bargain over whatever it is that may be, because we have no idea what.
Maybe since it's so unlikely, this worth put binding arbitration in, and then we'll take it out some other places.
Jokes on a Friday. Yeah.
I say that in jokes, of course. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, we're not ready to do anything on termination agreement, but we are going to, I believe we have some concerns on it being mutual. And I think we need to have a period that's actually just a period, that's not just mutually agreed to, but agreed, that it's part of the contract. And so we're working on, I'm just letting you know, just kind of signaling you what you'll see in the future. I think you'll see a proposal from us that will discuss that concept.
Kind of like an evergreen period.
Pardon me?
An evergreen period?
Yeah, probably tied to, not a long one. I'm not talking about a long one, but we would be normally long enough to, either do the dispute resolution procedure we have in the charter amendment, if it's still available, or, some other reasonable amount of time to try to, reach an agreement. But we don't think it should just, and I think actually years ago, I don't know this for sure, I think we're the ones that asked for it to be mutual. So we could say no if we didn't like, But we're rethinking that now, so just want to let you know.
And I think the mutual agreement is actually consistent with, NLRB guidance, right? And so I did look at the cases that Matt included in the little footnotes there, and it's more consistent with the city's side of, let the parties mutually agree to extend this contract during a pursuit, during a dispute resolution, during arbitration, during whatever. Let the parties decide to continue the term of the contract mutually, as opposed to this triggering event. But we'll take a look at whatever you propose.
You're able to review Matt's citations?
Yes, I
Because
reviewed.
he felt very strongly about that when I was talking with him.
And I can have a conversation with him.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's what we have for now. I believe, I don't know what y'all are planning, but we have, you sent a lot to our side of the table, so we have a lot to work on. And we plan on doing that. And I'm thinking we can turn back some things today, perhaps by 2 or 3. Maybe soon, if things work through sooner, we'll get with you sooner, but just trying to give you some idea. I think we can come back to the table with some further proposals.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and give you 18 as
Yeah.
well? Give you more to work on?
What's that now?
Why don't we go ahead and give you 18 to work on as well?
Okay, that's great.
And then, and 2 or 3 sounds fine.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you guys put it full day on Friday.
That's right, that's right. Believe you only have Friday and Monday sessions. We work all weekend too, so it's okay.
True. Okay, so our changes really only take place toward the end, and I don't think this is a surprise to y'all, as this had been discussed. Let me just make this happen a little faster. No changes, no changes, no changes. And this refers to the disciplinary matrix. So here's our proposed language here. Within 6 months after the ratification of this agreement, the parties agree to establish a joint committee for the purpose of making recommendations to the chief on a disciplinary matrix. The committee shall consist of 6 members, 3 appointed by the chief, 1 by the association, the AFA, 1 by the African American Firefighter Association, and 1 by the League of United Latin American Citizens Firefighters Council. They will make recommendations to the chief as soon as practical after its appointment. The chief agrees to adopt and implement a disciplinary matrix within 3 months of receipt of his recommendations. Nothing in this article, section D, nothing in this article will prevent the chief from deviating from the penalty ranges in the adopted disciplinary matrix, and deviations therefrom remain at the sole discretion of the chief. So, again, I think y'all were expecting something like this from us, so I don't think this is a surprise. And this is the only addition that we have to this article, and there's no other changes.
Yeah, I didn't think about it much, but it's not a surprise.
And that's it. I mean, unless you have any questions, you want to discuss it now, or if you want to chew on it a bit and we can come back.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a look at it. It seems pretty straightforward at first glance, so.
Yeah, and the point is, we could have just said, we agree to do the disciplinary matrix so that, on behalf of your members, you would have a more consistent application and way to figure it out. But this is similar. What we did is we kind of paralleled this to what we did with the MS, to where while they're coming up with the disciplinary matrix, since it doesn't exist now, we get input and assistance and thought processes that you might have while they're making the matrix, so that it's not just the chief implements it, we're done, but we try to do it collaboratively.
Can you go down to, I do have one question. Can you go down towards the bottom, please? So nothing in this article prevents the chief from deviating from the penalty ranges, the adopted disciplinary matrix or deviations. They're from within sole discretion of the fire chief. So I think the notion, just talking about me personally, I'm talking to my team, the notion of a reasonable disciplinary matrix provides certainty. I think it could be a good thing depending on how it's done and how appropriate it is and all the different disciplinary categories. But then the chief can just change it. I realize the chief can purview to different disciplinary circumstances that maybe the matrix could contemplate. So it probably does need to have some leeway there, but maybe not quite that much. So maybe for good reason, the chief can deviate or something along those lines. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud right now, so we can all be thinking about it.
Right. And so like the disciplinary matrix are certainly supposed to be helpful to the employees to kind of see, okay, this is where I could land if something, something like this happened. And the chief likewise, so if we do go to an arbitration and we need to prove A, that the employee did do the conduct, and then B, was the chief's discipline arbitrary or capricious, right? And so if there is a substantial deviation from the matrix, I think you have an argument that it could be arbitrary or capricious. So it works both ways in that sense. So obviously we can't account for every incident, let's say like there's a DUI or something like that, right? So maybe the DUI lands in this category. But if it's the person's, what if, there's a minor in the back, or there's a fatality as opposed to one vehicle accident, there's gonna be different things that may need to have the chief deviate from that range.
Cool.
So I think that the matrix would work both ways in terms of, for us, quite honestly, I think the matrix supports the chief's say this is not arbitrary capricious, the employee was on notice, and this shouldn't be surprises to my level of discipline. And then likewise, if it is deviated super duper far from that range, you have a counter argument to that as well. So we definitely want to keep language of some leeway in there for sure though.
And again, just personally, again, not saying this position, association or this team, I see some value in a disciplinary matrix, if it's done right. So I just wanted, and I think that was helpful, with your comments. We just want to make sure that it can be challenged if the chief goes outside of it during an appeal process. So it's not just, this doesn't take away that challenge, is section D, and it sounds like your response, you don't believe it would. So that's good.
And I will say also that like in some of the other departments I work for, the matrices are just done per policy and not included in the contract. So I think it's really a show of goodwill for the city to have this committee and get y'all's input in this matrix, and putting this type of language in the contract.
And I would say that's true, but it's also a major change of working condition. I think it should be negotiated.
And I understand that.
So,
Don't
okay,
agree,
well,
but I
no,
understand.
I appreciate that. And just so you know, we've been discussing some process changes for investigating harassments, other things, and the chief has accepted some and not accepted others. So some of our suggestions will probably gravitate around those items.
Okay. We don't have anything additional.
No,
Right
we'll
now.
send that one over, and then it sounded like you were gonna send some and not send others, but
Yeah, I mean, I will send, things, I don't think I need to resend cadet. You guys know what our thoughts are on that. We'll figure that one out. We'll send, things to standards and management rights. And, if you want me to send the indemnification language for Article 7, I'd be happy to do that if that's helpful to y'all. I think that's it.
yeah, you can just send that,
Yes.
just that clip,
Yep.
yeah. Okay. And then you're thinking 2 to 3? You
Yeah,
just
if
wanna
it
text us or
changes,
have
we'll
it?
update you as soon as we know.
Okay, sounds good.
And y'all think you might have something later today? Or?
We might have 17,
Oh,
just
okay.
one small section,
Gotcha.
but nothing necessarily here on that section, on that article.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, are we ready, Bernard? So 17, we had some small discussion about this particular section 4. Part of y'all's proposal was to eliminate this last section of section 4, and then when we discussed it, you had mentioned, why don't we just get rid of all of section 4? So we agree with that.
Okay.
And so that's the only change to Article 17. I know that we expect a response on everything else that we
Absolutely,
presented
yeah,
on
no,
17.
that makes sense.
But just to kind of update you on that, so that's, I will email this over to you. And then Article 4, yeah, I guess we did not understand that it was a package deal, is that right?
Yeah, and you know, I'll take credit for that. I was thinking out later on, so these two would kind of go together, but I never actually said they're a package deal.
Okay,
You know, I think I said when they're talked about, they should be talked about together or something, but I
you
didn't say.
did say that,
Yeah,
yes,
so,
yes.
sorry about that.
So we went ahead and struck out some of the things we originally proposed. You'll see the only thing that we really left in there is when the word says decide, we included establish, eliminate, or modify. Establish, eliminate, or modify instead of the word make, or the word determine, establish, eliminate, or modify. We essentially struck out everything else there.
Are you saying that that's just more descriptive than decide?
That's basically it.
Okay,
It's
so
just-
you think that, well, tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying, you think that decide wasn't, it contemplated things much more than just decide, and now you're writing them down. Would that be a way of saying it? Or
We are saying that, yes, decide already included establish, eliminate, or modify. We are just clarifying existing practices.
Are most of the changes relating to decide and adding the words?
Yes, so we took out
determine is the other two
determine,
words.
so
is the
yes,
same thing as
decide, make, and determine is basically what we're replacing. Decide,
Okay.
make, and determine, and
So one extra section available.
determine, make, yeah. And then this, the right to establish, eliminate, classify, reclassify, or modify the number and types of positions and job classifications. I mean, that's basically also straight out of 143 anyway. I'm not necessarily married to that particular language, but you see that's sort of our intent here. So determine, and then here the word establish is already there, eliminate or modify. I think it just adds consistency to the article and makes it a little more consistent and clarifies existing practices. So I don't know if this helps at all.
Maybe take a look at it.
We also left this in there as well, just reasserts our proposal from on 610 here. So memorializing existing practices.
Yeah, see, section 2 seems to go a lot further than just defining, define better or establish better. That seems to go a little further than me. Can you explain exactly what you're trying to accomplish with this part?
Well, and also the same thing, it's to memorialize existing practices. So I think with or without this in there, we already have this right. I guess my question to you, and I don't want to overcommit to something without getting with my team, but my question to you would be, if we did eliminate section 2, would you be okay with the rest of our proposals here?
And I wouldn't want to overstate, without talking to my team, I think it'd go a long way for just considering taking the rest. I need to talk to them. I know you talked to our attorney too, but it makes better sense to me to say that the word decide really kind of contemplates these things you're talking. That makes a lot of sense to me personally. But I need to talk to my team and see what they think. But in my opinion, it seems like the things I'm keen in right now, and I want to study it very thoroughly, seem reasonable. But I don't like section 2. I think it goes a little too far.
Okay. All right, well, that's really all we have for right now this afternoon. And I guess what I guess we'll see what you have to go. What are you proposing right now?
Oh, we got some stuff.
I know you do. All right, I'll unhook.
Part of getting a deal at the table is working hard to get a deal at the table. You gotta continue to work, right? So we got some stuff.
Oh, we're working.
I know.
Just, yeah.
I'm just talking on my side. I'm sure you are too. So shared communications, and a good example of what we're trying to do here, and you asked us for some more refined wording. Like, let's take a look at the matrix that the chief is talking about, in the article, in the disciplinary article. Forms a committee. We're the only ones not getting paid overtime in that committee. If we're invited in, I'll do.
Okay.
Literally, the African American Association would, LULAC would, and it would come around to us, and we wouldn't get to sign the overtime form. How is that not discrimination?
I think we believe that you are getting paid overtime if the person is working overtime.
We're not. We did a big overtime committee recently, and it was really good. And I've said this in front of our LMI several times. It was one of the best meetings the last couple of years we've had, where I thought it was really good back and forth, really good ways to meet consensus. I think everything the association recommended was accepted except for one item, and that's pretty good. That's really, really good. Everybody in that room got paid overtime except for the association representatives in the room that were off duty. The list would bypass them, go to the next person. We think that's wrong.
Let us discuss that internally again, because I think we may have a different understanding of that, and maybe it's just that we don't have enough information, because that's really not how we understand it. But I like the change you made and how you're doing it, but I'm still not sure. I'm not sure we're not on the same page. Let me put it that way, because I think we just need a little more internal caucus on this particular issue. But I appreciate you rewording it as much as you have.
Maybe we passed the form along and we should have signed it. Maybe it's our fault.
Yeah,
But either way, this would clarify that, right?
And we will definitely look at this again.
We just hate discrimination in any form. Okay? Trying to root it out. I'll send this to you a little later today.
And going back to 11, what about the ethics policy?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. I actually had a note on that. I wouldn't have covered it. We asked some questions about that last time, very specific, and asked if these things fell within the ethics policy. And as I reviewed the tape, it didn't seem like the response was clear to us. So we could handle that a couple ways. The policy is a policy, right? So the contract can certainly override the policy. But we're trying to meet your all's interest of using the policy as the basis, and we're fine with that. But we do need to have the questions answered as the regular business that we'd like to conduct within the policy or not. And that would be being able to, get on a station computer and look at the association webpage, on their free time. Now, I'm not saying that instead of work duty or something, but in their free time. Would they be able to vote? Would they be able to get on the discussion board and provide comment? It's a members only private discussion board. Would they be able to occasionally, I'm talking probably average of 1 or 2 times a year at the most, print off a page that I'd ask somebody to print off and put it on the kitchen table for review. That's it. That's the extent of what we need. And I think that's specific enough. We should be able to determine whether that's within the ethics policy. If it's not, we could write up those specific things and just put it in the contract. But we're trying to meet you guys and follow the policy as a first rule of order if we can do that.
Right, and I think that would be kind of hard to give you just like a straight answer in that scenario, same way as we were talking about the disciplinary matrix. Maybe one instance with a certain set of background facts would be different than a similar instance with a whole different set of background facts. And I think the ethics policy that the city has, worked on is taking into consideration that we are in 2022 and there's internet on like every device, that we have. And so we're trying to accommodate that, right? And so there are going to be probably, we can tell you, in many instances that you're describing, maybe, yeah, most likely they fall under that de minimis use. But if you're looking for an actual, yes, this is okay, I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to give you that affirmative answer. And I don't know if that.
Because it's a policy and you don't actually interpret it 100%.
Well, I mean, you can't really, we can't tell the future, and something that may not be de minimis in one instance may be de minimis in another instance. So I think it's a guidepost that y'all can refer to, which is why we're referring to it in the contract. We already established it last time that we feel that, and I think y'all agreed, that the ethics policy applies to all employees of the city of Austin, to include the firefighters, and so, but to tell you, on camera, so there's a 30-second snippet that you can use in some arbitration later, like, oh, this is okay. I'm not gonna be able to do that because you just never know what the circumstances might be behind that instance.
And that would make it hard for us to then agree that the policy is something that should be followed, because we're asking very specific things that we think we already have permission to do. We're just trying to clarify that. You all put a policy out there and then can't tell us whether those things that we've had permission in the past would fit within the policy.
I think that most situations that you're discussing would probably fall under that de minimis use and would be fine under the current ethics policy. But I cannot eliminate or give, I cannot say for certain, because I certainly can't tell the future, and I can't say what circumstance may be, what context behind that would be.
So then it seems like we should probably not put the policy in the contract, just write those items in.
Or I guess we need to pull up 11 and see.
We're just trying to work the way you guys want to do it. We just need to have some assurances.
Because I think the original proposal was that we can do this, this, and this. And then we countered with, here's the ethics policy. That should all be covered anyway. So we can take out that section entirely and it just falls under city policy already. I think that's our current position anyway. But I don't know if you want to pull it.
Yeah, but a contract, I think you agreed with me that a contract would certainly override a policy if the city manager signed it.
Yes.
Yes, and so if we had items in there that were important to us and he signed that, then we wouldn't have to follow the policy for those particular items. We would follow the contract.
We would follow the contract.
We don't want to do that because we're trying to work with what you guys want to do. But it seems it's kind of a little hard to be satisfied when we're trying to do that and we're giving you very specific things we'll be doing. And
Well,
you're
why
saying
don't you
we're
pull
not
it
sure.
up like Becky asked you to do a couple of times, so we can see exactly what those are again and what's already in the contract, because we don't have it memorized.
What do you want to look at?
Okay, 11.
Article 11, the article you're
The
talking
one
about?
I just took down?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But I don't know that they're written in there. Maybe they are. But I can say what they are, or I can give you.
I'm not sure if your old proposal.
Well, we're just
very
trying to
first
figure out if
proposal.
they're in the current contract and you were proposing them, or if they were, we're just trying to kind of, yeah.
So the original wording, I think, says we can use the pony and we can use station computers with, chief's permission, I think, and stuff like that. And we were just trying, and we've talked about, hey, can we use station computers? Can we do, and the answer's been yes, but, I just wanted to make sure it was, again, it's kind of in the spirit of sometimes we're all gonna be gone and we need to have this clear what it means. So I was trying to clarify those things. There were recurring things that we would do that are pretty common. So what part do you want to look at? I'm sorry.
Go scroll down a little bit more. Scroll down. Yeah, a little more.
There, so.
Oh, I guess I did have a little list there, didn't I?
Yeah, so those weren't in the current agreements.
No.
Yeah, we didn't have the ethics policy in the current agreement. So I guess my question is, if we just went back to the old language, would that be fine?
Well, this is not the old language. This is proposed language that I had.
Yes.
And those questions were answered. I think they're answered table in 15 or 17. Oh yeah, those things sound okay. I'm just trying to put them in the contract so as we go forward, we all term out here, it's clear what is okay and what isn't okay. I'm just talking about the history of this whole thing now, right? Then you guys said, well, hey, let's use this policy. It seems to fit, and we agree, it seemed to fit. But we're asking, are these things okay in that policy? And it seems like that should be an answer that can be rendered. And your answer is kind of like, we don't know, it depends. And that doesn't seem.
It does depend, yeah, that's a very
To
reasonable
view an
answer.
AFA website, that could be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it could also be many, many hours. And it could be the first instance, the second instance, the third instance, could it be disruptive to the department? I don't know, the way it's worded, in your first proposal that's why we said, well, if you want something like that in there, then this has already been hashed out and discussed at length and analyzed and look at the ethics policy. So that's probably a better way to look at it.
What would it matter if it was 1 minute or 5 minutes or an hour? If it was on the people's private, their time when they're not doing other duties. Just like it wouldn't matter if they watch television for 3 minutes or 10 minutes or a half hour.
Well, just for example, if, the online voting for the union representation was, due by 2 p.m. And for whatever reason, everybody voted at a certain time and the whole computer crashed. And that's not gonna happen. But for example, if it did, then it's like they were all voting on the city computer and crashed the computer. That's, there's things that just need to be considered where if it complies with the ethics policy, if it's de minimis time versus if it's taking up more time, and who's to decide that? It's not a videotape of Becky saying, well, it's okay to use the computer. It's okay if it complies with the ethics policy, meaning if it's de minimis. She can't sit here and say that your use of something is, on your free time, if it's not on your free time. If somebody gets disciplined saying it's not on the free time.
Doesn't speak that either.
But if it conflicts with the job duties, if it's this or that, there's so many other factors that go into it, that by her just saying it's okay for you to do this is not something she's gonna say because it could be taken out of context.
So I'm wondering, so the whole reason we brought up the ethics policy in the first place was because of your first proposal of to view the AFA website, online voting, et cetera, right? So if we went back to the old language, and the old language says the association may be granted approval to use station printers and computers, for rapid dissemination of information, right? So granted approval to use station printers and computers. I mean, the whoever's granting approval, the chief or his designee, is still going to be complying with the city's ethics policy. So I'm wondering, are we just speaking in circles here? Should we just go back to the old language that's currently in there now? And
the fire chief does not come to the stations and look at what people are doing. So the fire chief can tell you right now, hey, I'm okay with this. And then we'll put it in the contract, we're done with it. So let's just do that. It just seems like we're talking about, we're on the space shuttle and our hair is on fire, we reach for the fire extinguisher and it's out, so we're talking about these one-offs that are insane.
Well, are you getting denied a lot for this?
yeah.
Pardon me?
Are you getting denied a lot for the use of
I have
this?
people call me and say, hey, is it okay to use the station computer to vote? And I'll say, yeah, we talked about this before and I think it's okay. Now, I'm telling them what I think, and that person gets in trouble for it. I'm trying to make sure that what I'm saying is accurate.
And I actually think it's a really good practice that you're getting those calls, like, hey, is this okay for me to do? Let me find out. Having I get what you're trying to say. You're trying to just sort of put in the contract maybe what's already currently being done. But I can also see that kind of blanket approval being abused as well. And so, they're not going to be asking.
For every crew of 4, as a supervisor, 1 person to look at work duties at the station, right? So it's not like you give this blanket, this thing that they can use the website, and it circumvents the authority of the lieutenant or captain of the station monitoring their activities, right? So we already have a very robust system of oversight on what happens in the work duties, and we've been doing this fire department thing for like 150 years, right? So we kind of know how to do it, you know, right? And nobody's abusing their time at the station because they have supervisors there. And so is free time sometimes. This is the nature of emergency calls. You kind of wait for an emergency call. You're not training, you're the administrator, you're waiting for an emergency call. And so we're saying when you're waiting for an emergency call, can you get on and look at the computer on the website? That's all we're asking. Very minor, very, very minor ask.
And I think that there's nothing in the current language that prevents that either. And it doesn't appear that there's been any denials or any issues that.
But yet it's hard to get clarity, isn't there?
I don't see this as being unclear. I think the association may be granted approval to use station printers and computers. Like I said, the ethics policy is already in play.
This stuff is astounding to me. I almost do it just for the exercise of the discussion, because it's really astounding to me. Because from my perspective, we're talking about something that's extremely minor. Like a past practice we're already kind of doing. I think we even agreed to at the table, I think in 15, this could be done. And I'm just saying, let's clarify that they can look at the website, vote, and get on the discussion board. And we're talking about maybe the system will go down to everybody does at 2 o'clock.
Well, that was
and the
one
policy
example.
might change, and it's just such an easy, it's like, how do we get anything done in the contract if we can't figure this one out? It's not, this isn't the most important thing by far, but I mean, this is so simple.
Right, I think our problem is we don't see what there is to figure out because you're not having an issue with it now.
I explained to you our interest, this interest-based bargaining. I explained to you the issues we've had, and I'm trying to solve things somewhat proactively. We're not getting people fired for using the station computer. But if there's angst about it because they're not sure, and we have good organizational citizens who want to do the right thing, let's provide them the right guidance. It's a very minor ask.
I think the only angst that we're getting here is that you're trying to pin Becky down to a very specific answer, that it's okay to do very specific things, and all she is saying is, it depends.
And all I'm
Which
saying
does.
is, yes, I'm trying to pin down an answer. There's a very minor thing to try to pin you down on to get an
And
answer.
she gave you an answer, it depends.
What's that?
She
Yeah,
gave you an
and
answer,
the
and the
answer is
answer is,
it
it depends.
Yeah, and my response to that is, that's astounding to me. Because out of all the complexity of trying to get a deal, this is like so simple.
Yes, it is.
And we're getting
Just
pushback
follow
on
the
it.
city's ethics policy, that's very simple. We're not
So
trying to
simple,
define
you
it
can't
for
even
you.
interpret it with an exact definition of what we're trying to do. That's how simple it is, right?
Well,
To
we-
view AFA website, that means a whole heck of a lot of things.
Does it?
To view AFA website, well, you've mentioned, while we're on downtime in between emergency calls, that's not in there. Online voting and viewing other AFA communication in between emergency calls. That's not, there's so many different scenarios and contexts for which some of these incidents can arise. And yes, Sarah used like the whole system crash as an extreme example, but there's gonna be other examples in between.
I think because you probably, obviously never worked at a fire station, I've been a firefighter, you don't realize how simple this is. But he does, or the fire chief should. So I just don't see how we don't get there on this one. And let's just put it to bed for now. We'll, whatever we'll talk about later. It's more than this to me. It's just that this should be the simplest thing. Because it's actually asking almost nothing.
I think we agree, it's
Yeah.
very simple. We just don't agree on what simple is.
That's why I'm astounded.
That's all.
So, moving on. I think we're getting very close on this one, savings clause. I just wanted to ask a question on it. It's more relating just to the circumstance. Gosh, if I can't even get station computers, I don't know how this thing's gonna go, but we'll see. Let's just say that, for the sake of argument, sort of thing, a what if, that the city charter amendment was found unconstitutional. And we're under a contract that's awarded by the arbitrator. So that means likely, now this is all kind of Wild West stuff in the law, I understand, because none of this has ever happened, but it's likely that it would invalidate the entire contract, I think. But I'd like to hear what y'all think, and then I'd like to hear what happens at that point. Because if a portion or large portion, small portion, I think it likely the entire contract would be invalidated. What do we do? What happens next? Because that's kind of what we're trying to answer before, and we said, you know, we could go back to the table and settle something. Then Matt aptly pointed out, no, the contract's gone. You know, so that means the savings clause is gone, right? So I'm sure we can solve this one if we can't solve station computers. But, you know, just like to have, I don't even think you'd have like a definitive answer. This is the one I think you might have an opinion or a lean or a speculation on. I'd like to know what that is, and we'll try to share ours as best we can too, because although I think it's unlikely, it's an outcome that would be, you know, things are unlikely, but have huge, profound impacts are things we need to consider in our risk model, right?
Right, so is this kind of in line with the termination of the agreement article with the?
I'm just saying that all these articles are kaput because a judge said that it's unconstitutional. We don't have any articles anymore. We don't have a contract anymore. Let's just say that just happened. What are we gonna do right now?
No, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I don't think there is an answer to that. That's an answer. I think that's a very good question. Unfortunately, it wasn't contemplated under the charter amendment, so
You blame it
it's
on
not
us.
something. Why not? No, it
Yeah,
could be.
but-
I'm not saying it could have been contemplated. I'm just saying it's not something that's been addressed. So you know, either you know, we go back to 143 at that time, or we come to an agreement to extend whatever it is at that time, or the arbitration itself contemplates, you know, something along those lines. I'm not sure. There's not an answer.
Yeah, but
It's a
judge,
good
well, it would
question.
mean arbitration might be probably in front of a district judge.
Right.
And he would probably, he could do a variety of things, right? But not, you know, it could be that he says only, it's probably unlikely to say only sections are unconstitutional. He's probably gonna say the whole thing, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he says the whole thing. That means we don't have anything to work within right now.
Well,
You know, that means, you know,
I don't
we're back to strict 143.
And
But this
the
doesn't
whole-
do anything for that.
Yeah, and the whole.
Pardon me?
This doesn't have anything to do with.
I understand that. Yeah, I prefaced that at the beginning of the conversation.
Good question, but not.
We're
not
still
for the
ready to
bargaining
TA
table.
this. I'm just bringing this up because
Yeah,
we're
it's
ready to
just
TA
not for the
this.
bargaining table. We're not the city's legal team who would represent them in the arbitration or afterwards. So, I mean, we're here to bargain the actual contract. That's a good question. You know, it's a good question, but
Thank
it's
you.
not for us to respond to.
And I would like to see if we get a good answer. The reason I'd like to get a good answer, not just for theoretical reasons, it might be that it might be prudent to have a stipulated agreement in case that happens, it's outside the contract. Perhaps,
Well, I think that.
or perhaps not, but I mean, I just want to contemplate that.
Right. And so, obviously, your question is like, what happens? So we've been bargaining these collective bargaining agreements for years and years and years now, right? So both sides have gotten the benefit of the bargain. So I don't necessarily think we certainly don't want to lose a lot of work that we've done on our side of the table for the amount of years. So I think at the time that those things happen, we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. But in terms of our purpose today and the rest of the times that we have together, is to get a deal with this particular agreement. You know, obviously the binding arbitration issue is a backdrop. Obviously the legal argument in the Texas Supreme Court is in the background, and you know, maybe the elephant in the room. But we're still working as if that is not there and trying to come to the best deal that we can.
And I think you understand, I get that, right? But I'm talking about, I guess I'm looking at a risk model like I talked about earlier. If there's a low probability for something but the impact's profound, perhaps we should have something about it. Now, we could do it a variety of ways. I could start going to council and say, hey, let's get the stipulation done, so if this ever happens, we can pass a resolution, the city manager won't like it, you guys won't like it, well, we can talk about it here a little bit. You know, we could say, hey, that's, you know, you said it's a good question. I think it's not a good question. I think it's possibly something we should work on.
Well, I think it's a very good question, you know, no doubt. However, we are going to try to get in good faith bargaining to an agreement at the table, and don't think we should be taking our time that is short, and it's a short period of time to try to come up with an answer in case we don't get to an agreement. We don't consider that good faith bargaining. We think that's after the fact.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your opinion on that. So I guess what you're saying is, then, since you said it that way, that this isn't something you're interested in contemplating here at the table.
At the table, correct.
Okay. Is there another venue we could do that under then?
There might be.
Okay. What might those things be?
Why don't you contact us outside
Okay,
the bargaining
okay.
table?
Good enough. And with that, believe it or not, we're ready to TA the savings clause. Okay, EMS article, I just had a question. We kind of asked it before. When I reviewed the tapes, I don't know that it was answered. So I'll just ask again. So if we go through this 120 days of bargaining, and we can't read, and I understand the way Devin just got decided, he really, I guess there's some thought that everybody kind of get together and try to reach a consensual agreement on this. And then let's just say we don't. Let's just say that there's kind of at least 3 parties here, and one of them doesn't like it for whatever reason. Can the city unilaterally implement a merger?
I think, and I don't want to speak for Devin, but I think what he said was that whether they can or can't, they don't contemplate doing so at any time involuntarily on behalf of EMS.
Okay.
It's not whether or not they have the authority to, but that's not the intent or desire of the city to do so.
So they would have the authority to, but that's not their desire.
I don't think anyone has said that.
No, you didn't.
I
just
said
wanted-
whether
I'm
or
trying
not
to
they
see
do.
if you agree with that statement, because it sounds like that's what you're saying. They would have the authority to, but that's not their intent.
I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with that. I'm saying if that's not what the city's intent to do is, and whether or not they have the authority to do it, we have to leave it.
Okay.
I'm not giving an opinion on that.
Well, okay, so we could put a proposal back saying that would have to be mutually agreed upon, right? And I guess we could have that discussion then, but that's one of our concerns is that environment. What is the environment? I think that possibly they could, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but it seems like they would have the authority to unilaterally do it, regardless of intentions. I mean, there's been intentions that have sometimes don't play out, sometimes, you know, so we'd like to know when we're talking about this sort of article, what the environment is. So I guess we will put a counter back and we can have that discussion then. It's a lot more testy than it used to be. So we have kind of competing proposals on discipline right now, because we have proposals we're putting out the same day. So rather than taking your wording and putting in ours and changing it, I thought I'd make it a little more conceptual. And at the end of this, if you guys say, Bob, why don't you bring us something Monday, I'll be happy to do that. And I'll kind of put it together, okay? Oh, this is actually ours. I'd rather show you yours first. Sorry about that. Save the best for last. Okay, so I think the main, are there any other changes except for the display matrix? I didn't think so. Okay. So, couple questions. One is this section you guys seem to add this morning, this new section of red, deciding who gets appointed on the labor side. You know, that could be considered misogynistic because we're not including the female group. It'd be considered discriminatory because we're not including other groups like veteran groups or Asian groups or whatever, you know, we're really cherry picking certain groups that would be there. So we think it'd be better to, like, maybe there's a group that represents them all. And there happens to be, it's called the association, the AFA. And so that might be a better choice. And we'll make sure that we have an HR committee, we'll make sure that's activated, make sure everybody has say. But if we're gonna do this, we think that'd probably be a more apt way to do it.
So the reason that we included those two is because they have like they're like official associations where, yes, there are other groups, but these are like official associations that are like officially recognized by the fire department. So if there are others that maybe we are not aware of, we would probably be okay with including them. Certainly the intent is never to be misogynistic or discriminatory or anything.
It could look that way, you know, so it could look that way. So I think it'd be better to have a group that kind of encompasses all of those different groups rather than just picking certain groups, would be our thought. The other thought is, and I really hope y'all can be open to this because I think the matrix could be good, I really do. But the contents of the disciplinary matrix remain the sole discretion of the fire chief. So there's a lot of process here. But at the very end, the fire chief can pretty much do whatever he wants, right?
Yep.
And we don't have it designed yet, so this is something that happens in the future. So I'd like to know what your lean is, and you may not like either one of these choices, and that's fine. And we'll make our proposal and we'll go do some back and forth. But to us, let's get it done at the table. I know the chief's already got a draft. He's been circulating it around, you know, to chief's work days and stuff. We can get our group going. We'll we'll work a little harder, dedicate a little bit more time to do it. But let's get it done here at the table, at arm's length. Now, you know. Or we could say it has to be mutually agreed upon, which I don't think the chief wants to do. So I really think now we got 5 weeks. You know, let's get it done now. That would be our preference, actually. That's all I have to say about that. So some of this stuff is harassment process stuff that we talked about over the last couple of years, and some of the stuff we talked about in labor management initiative meetings. Some of it was accepted, and some of it was accepted and never used, and I think it's kind of fallen to the wayside. Some of it's accepted and has been used. Some of it wasn't accepted. So we want to revisit some of that stuff. Okay, one thing we talked about, and I don't think it was accepted from the fire chief at the time, but the AFD investigators do not have any, sometimes they don't have any training in investigations, period. Especially when they first come to the job. But when we asked them, none of them had any training in harassment investigation in general, which is usually done a little bit differently. You talk to organizations like SAFE and stuff, the way they interview and treat the target of harassment is usually quite different than a regular investigation. And so we suggest that some form of training, we're not stipulating a lot, but some form of training our investigators should go through on harassment. We're striking this, I don't know if it's ever been used, the polygraph section, but we don't think it should be. I think if a complainant wants to submit to polygraph, that's great. I don't think anybody should be compelled to do a polygraph, so we'd like to strike that section on chief's ability to, compel a polygraph. The chain of command meeting, there's been a lot of really good changes made to this, I think, especially in 17. And I think they've worked well. But some of this stuff was things that we've seen. And a lot of this, again, came out of harassment cases. We've had a slew of them over the last couple year period. It kind of dropped off now, thank God, and it seems like a little better. But so one thing we noticed is that the way it works is the chain of command is supposed to advise the fire chief on items of discipline. So the PSO does an investigation and then creates a PSO summary. And the summary is done to the best ability of the PSO. I never have any question about that, but it's certainly someone's opinion based on some facts they pull out that they think are pertinent facts, but it's not the entire case file. A lot of times when commands, when you talk about chain of command, you're talking about immediate supervisor, usually a secondary supervisor, battalion chief. And it might be the first time I've ever been to this event. And they just don't know much about what their role is. When you talk to them after the fact, oh, I thought I was going to do the summary. I just thought, they didn't really realize that their role there is to really ascertain the information and try to make a determination. And maybe some people understand it at a really high level and some people don't understand it very much. We're just saying there should be some very rudimentary training that, hey, this is your role here, and this is what you're supposed to do. And you can ask for everything in the file if you want to, if you really need to get more information. I think some of them are a little bit maybe bewildered or a little bit overwhelmed and don't quite know what their role is. And if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong 100% of the time. I'm talking to some people on exit, it seems like some of them don't quite know what they are exactly supposed to do and the exact tools and resources they have at their disposal to make that determination. So we're not asking anything very heavy-handed here. You have a PowerPoint, 5 or 6 slides, and you can probably do it, But some sort of training so they know what their role is. Okay, if the investigation concerns alleged harassment, the target of the alleged harassment may require the chain of command to view video excerpts of their testimony. So let's talk about that one first. So the chain of command process, the person that's the target of the investigation can come and personally address the chain of command. Very humanize themselves, tell their side of the story, and all that's good. They should, because this is really a member-on-member action a lot of times. It's someone alleged to of harassment, perpetrating harassment, and somebody who's the target of harassment. And so we'd ask for equal access, and then there were some issues that the fire chief's office raised. I don't remember exactly who now, Christine May, said, it could bring up new information into the investigation, and then we'd have to redo the investigation. So we suggested then that, and I think this suggestion was actually adopted, but I don't think it's been used. And maybe it hasn't been used because there hasn't been a harassment case, or maybe it just fell to the wayside. But the idea is, okay, let's not bring any new information until let's just allow the target of harassment to decide the clips that the command staff would then have to watch. And so that'd be kind of a lieu of the person coming into the chain of command personally. It would be their personal testimony that was video recorded during the PSO investigation. We're not asking for additional testimony. We're not asking for some sort of highly marketed video. We're talking about during that interview. Also, the target of harassment may request that a person of their choosing. We used to have a person of their demographic. So if it's African American, you can choose somebody from the demographic of being African American to sit there. Because there's sometimes, what I've learned over 12 years of what I'm doing, and I'm sure many of you all know this too, there's different demographics. You're talking about discrimination. There's certain pretexts that other groups aren't quite aware of sometimes. And that's important context. And honestly, the chain of command, I have nothing against our chain of command means a bunch of old white men. Being an old white man, I don't have a lot of problem with old white men, but they may not have the perspective of a young African American or a young female who thinks she's been harassed, or any other demographic group for that matter. And so harassment cases are really, really important we get it right. And important that both sides, when we certainly don't want to punish somebody who was alleged harassment and he's exonerated or there's not enough evidence. We certainly don't, but we certainly want to make sure the person that feels like they're harassed gets the proper process and gets proper treatment during that process. And a lot of these things we got from other groups in Austin, SAFE, and other organizations. We went to them and tried to research best practices. So we're bringing back some things we learned after we talked then about our specifics of what we do. This was a couple of years ago, and we brought these things to the chief. And the chief, adopted some of these things. To his credit, we're not saying he just wholesale. Some of these things are things he's adopted. We're trying to memorialize some of these things. things he, I think we might have adopted or thought about adopting, but kind of fell to the wayside because they weren't memorialized. And some of them I don't think he agreed to, so I don't want to make it sound like he agreed to all these, but I believe the videotape was agreed to. Check on that, I don't want to be wrong, mischaracterize that. And the target of harassment having a demographic, and I think the chief, to be honest, I think rather than of their choosing, I think his preference was to have a cadre of people that was more familiar with the chain of command process from different demographics that could sit in. And I think that's fine. But I also think that it might be better to choose somebody. Let's say I have post-citizen stress and I'm a veteran. Well, I might actually want a young female veteran or a young female who understands post-citizen stress in the military that's also a firefighter to be my representative, you know. So maybe we open it up a little bit further. I think it's worth discussing. So anyway, that's that one. Okay, so we've had a couple complaints filed against members of the command staff and our fire chief. And I'm not gonna talk about examples. I don't think you guys want me to. Happy to do it if you want me to. And they weren't investigated, essentially. They weren't investigated. And the reason I say that most weren't investigated is many of the people that were witnesses were never contacted. And so we think that just as firefighters should be held to a high standard, so should our highest officers in the department. It instills honor, integrity, all the things that are in our AFD doctrine. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if the complaints are made and people are innocent, we need to clear their name, right? If complaints are made and they're not innocent, then they need to take the medicine like anybody else, right? And this was a big deal a couple of years ago. I got in front of the Public Safety Commission. I quoted the year, or quoted the week on the Chronicle. I said it defies reason to think that the very people that are being alleged of a crime should be the people and the people that should, you know, do the investigation and you're going to receive a just outcome out of that. And so this is a big deal. I'm thinking about having the Public Safety Commission maybe revisited at some point. Wouldn't be during bargaining. I don't think that'd be right, but I don't mean serious about that. I really don't. But we think the city auditor's office. We haven't talked to them. They probably would hate to be. I just have a lot of respect for the city's auditor's office. I think the fact they're independent from the city manager's branch of authority and go right to the council office. I'm really impressed with a lot of their work, and so that's why we mentioned them. I think you could go to other ways. I think you could do a third party that both people pay for and start a contract on, you know, association, city. I mean, there's lots of ways to do that, but that's what we're trying to accomplish. The last part is, I think it's almost like a common courtesy. And I don't think that, we've had some really good PSOs lately. The last two, I think particularly been very, very good. The last, Glenn was there for a long time. He was just excellent, you know. And there are even times when sometimes he wouldn't be aware of this. I think it should be memorialized. It's just really just kind of the common courtesy of follow up with people that are under investigation or people that have alleged harassment. So a lot of times what we see is just people, you know, you got the 180 days once you take action. Well, you know, if you were harassed or felt like you were harassed and you made an allegation, you don't hear anything in 4 months, you're always thinking about it. You just kind of want an update, you know? And also if you're accused of something, you kind of want an update. So this is just saying, hey, just once a month, the investigators call the firefighter and say, nothing's happened, but we're still working on it. Or, you know, these are the things that have happened last month. And then, you know, especially with a target of harassment, sometimes they find out like a month after the investigation was closed, that it was closed. And they have no information on it. And it just seems, from their perspective, it seems like another insult, you know, and we're just trying to make it where people don't feel that way. And it's really just as simple as making these phone calls and updating people. And it's so important, I think, it should put in the contract just to kind of make it a business rule or whatever, if that makes sense. I think that's it. Let me make sure. Pretty sure that's it. Oh, wait a minute, what do we do here? What happens here? Oh, that was another place we almost looked at, same thing. Okay, yeah, that's it. And so I'm happy to work on this any way you want to. If you want me to take your language, incorporate into ours, and then give you a proposal, however you want to do it.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay.
We'll still look at your proposals that you went over today and
I'll send it to you just so you can review it.
Yeah.
Sure. And over the weekend, I'll kind of mesh them together and I'll have something more.
yeah, that'll work.
Now, do you want me to just send it to you? You want me to once I put them together, since we're talking about it now, can I just send it to you as our proposal? Or should I lay it out on Monday, or do you have a preference?
Why don't you send what you just went over right now, so we can kind of start looking at it and start looking at that language, and then if over the weekend or on Monday, you mesh them together with a counter proposal on the disciplinary matrix section.
Yep.
Go ahead and send that over.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I think
That
that's
way
a
we
little
can
time.
get started.
Yeah, I think that'll be a little more efficient that way too. Okay, very good. And I think that's all I had. Let me get my notes just to make sure. Oh, civil service. So I don't know what to do about civil service. Because we listened to your explanations on the video, and we had our attorneys look at it. I had another attorney look at it too. And I know you guys all think that, I don't even know how to say this. Let me just be blunt. I mean, it seems like there's a conflict of interest, the way y'all talk about it. It just does. It's hard for us to, for you to say that the client is the city and you have to continue to represent the client, but you're not having ex parte communication with the chair, but you still have to support the city's position. It just seems like a conflict of interest the way y'all are talking about it.
The way we're talking about it.
Yes,
sounds
I mean, I'm just, again, I want you to give me something that makes me think differently, I guess, because I don't want to think that way, but I'm just telling you, when I review it, it just looks that way. And so I had Matt look at it, another attorney look at it, they both thought the same thing. You know, another independent set of fresh eyes that unbiased in a sense. And I must be missing something. I don't get it. I mean, it seems like it's such an easy thing to say that the city's obviously my clients who are paying my salary. But then when I'm given this duty of representing the chair of the commission, I can divorce myself during that conversation and only give him advice based on his questions. It doesn't seem like a hard thing to do, but it seems like from y'all's perspective, it's a very hard thing to do.
Well, I think the issue had to do with some specific language in the proposal. I don't know if you want to pull up your proposal.
I'm not sure. I did
Something,
quickly.
it was something about like the despite the attorney's interests. And so that's regardless of the attorney's interests.
The city's
interests. The city's interests, yeah. So the attorney, and I can pull it up as well. But, and that was kind of the issue, is that we don't disagree that there should not be ex parte communications, right? So you've got a whole legal department, and that legal department wears a lot of hats. One of them being, advising the city council, one of them being advising the Civil Service Commission, and then, Ben's here advising us, on this regard, and then you have other attorneys who are advocating for either their fire chief or the police chief, right? So I understand that, I get that. And because of these different hats, we don't want the advocate, right? The advocate who's representing the fire chief in this situation to be having ex parte communications with the Civil Service Commissions, who are ultimately going to be making that decision. But the attorney that is representing the Civil Service Commission isn't necessarily they're not advocating for the fire chief side. They're simply providing legal advice as to what they can do and not do within the confines of 143 and the CBA. And so that's the interest. So I think what you meant by your language, regardless of the city's interest, I think you were trying to say regardless of the city, maybe the advocate's position, I don't know, but the wording, regardless of the city's interest, was something that we couldn't get behind. But we don't disagree with the ex parte aspect of it that's already in the contract. So, I don't know if that clears up anything for you. Because really it wasn't so much the concept, it's that specific language in there.
No, I think that's something we can look at again and maybe come back with a comment.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
So you're gonna send us a little excerpt on training, I guess.
Yes, we will do that. And in regards to the wage proposals, so we are, like I said, and we are working on our own presentation in terms of more like in anticipation of an actual wage proposal from you all. So I don't think we can agree to swap at the same time. We will prepare and be ready to present a wage proposal basically when we're ready. And we're working on that, and obviously we got a lot on our plate. So that may be at the same time as y'all. It may be before y'all. It'll probably likely be after y'all. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, that's fair enough. We're asking, we're not demanding. We just thought it was a good idea. It's fine. But so like if we were to say we'd like to do one Thursday, let's say we don't do the swapping stuff and crazy stuff I came up with, hard copy swapping, let's just say you say that, hey, we're gonna both do them the morning of Thursday. Is that okay, or you guys don't even want to? It sounds to me like no.
We can't commit to that right now. Yeah.
Okay. We're not trying to rush you. We just thought you were probably close like we were. So.
Yeah, we just can't commit to that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough.
If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it won't. So.
We're going to try to have something by next Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not promising that. It's just kind of a goal right now, but I think we likely could. Is there a possibility of y'all having something by Thursday, or do you think it might be a little longer than that? Or do you know?
There's a possibility. Part of the other problem is all of the other things that you put on the table that have other costing. We're having those costed out still, and we don't have the results of that.
I'll support if you want.
So I'm sure you can. But obviously it's a package of compensation benefits that we're trying to put together, and just putting a wage proposal kind of standalone, we can't really do until we have everything else to put it into a bigger picture.
Okay. And one thing we'd really like before we do our wage proposal is an amount, kind of a city take on the comparable report that was produced for you all. Is that a possibility?
You want us to present the compensation analysis that we emailed you?
Yeah, we reread it thoroughly, and we drew some of our own inferences from it. But, we'd like another opinion on it, your opinion, since you guys commissioned it, and see what inferences you guys are drawing, or what your thoughts are, or however you want to characterize it.
Yeah, you'll definitely get our thoughts on it, and it'll be part of our overall package when we propose it. So,
okay, so that might not be until later too. See, I was hoping maybe we could get that before we do our wage proposal. It might inform parts of our wage proposal.
Yeah, no, it'll be in conjunction with our wage proposal or counter proposal, or whichever way that comes.
We may hold off too. We might. I don't know what we're gonna do. I need to talk to the team, but we might hold off and just see when you guys are gonna do yours and do ours the same day then, because we're doing ours last. I don't know. But I think it'd be valuable to get your perspective before we start throwing numbers around, whatever concepts around. So we'll see. If you change your mind on that, let us know. So I'd really love to get, just going through the report. I just think you coupling the two together, and it's your prerogative, but it'd be nice to see that your perspective on the report sooner rather than later from our perspectives.
Yeah, well, we are definitely working on it. As Sarah already mentioned, there's a lot of articles that involve the fiscal aspect, so we're working.
Okay, very good.
Anything else I missed?
I think so.
You guys want to take one more crack at shared communications?
Well, I will say this. I don't agree with the characterization of our position being astounding. But
I honestly think it's so much more simple than they're making it. if you were to list those things within the confines of the city's ethics policies, we could probably put them in there. We would just have to see a draft of that in writing. It's not like we're not willing to even look at the concepts, it's just that we're not willing to state a definitive parameter that it's always okay, because it isn't always okay. You know, as you said yourself, if on their off time, if on their downtime, if on, and as Becky said, none of that's in there. So we were just trying to make it a little more simple by referring to the ethics policy. It doesn't mean you can't list the other things within that, but it's all one big picture. So I don't think it's as astounding either.
And I,
At all.
Combine the two sentences.
That's what I'm saying, that,
City ethics,
I think if you took a shot at
more
that,
specifics.
there's a strong
Yeah.
likelihood that we might consider it favorably. Can't
and
promise until I see it in writing,
Right.
but yeah, it doesn't seem that hard to me to just marry the two.
I don't want,
Okay.
and I don't want that, your perspective of it being, quote, astounding, our position being astounding, to put a negative cloud on the rest of the contract, which is sort of what I gathered based on the session this morning, is that, or even, I'm confusing my time, so it's 30 minutes ago. Because I think that we've already TA'd some articles that are a heck of a lot more complicated than Article 11. Maybe not as complex as wages, of course, but like, I don't think that our position or your opinion of our position should mar the rest of how we approach the rest of the articles.
I mean, it doesn't, but it's certainly given due consideration, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it's that interaction we just had, which wasn't probably the best interaction we've had at the table so far, destroys our bargaining relationship. That's very important to me. I don't want to do that. I'm just trying to be candid. I use a word like astounding. That's what I'm feeling at the moment.
Right.
Now, I might be feeling for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, but I'm telling you how I feel about it. It just seems like such an easy thing for me, and really such an easy thing for y'all too, and we're kind of at a deadlock. It's astounding to me. But I think that this conversation you have with Jeremy provides some ways around that. And I am absolutely committed to getting around deadlocks or astounding things that happen at the table and get a deal. I definitely want to. So it only mars to the extent that we can't get around it. All right.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
And I guess it's good that we bring that feeling to light so we can kind of address it head on and not.
yeah, and
You
if I,
thought you were kidding
I
when
was
you
just
brought
making
that
a
back
joke.
up.
Actually, isn't being productive.
we haven't had the good cop speak up yet. You know? But no, I mean, I think we're doing well, and I appreciate your candor, and I hope you appreciate ours. And when I say something like that, it's only because I'm feeling it. I'm not trying to manipulate. I just really kind of, amazed sometimes about how simple things can be twisted where we can't seem to get there. So we'll get there.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Okay.
Did you all have anything else?
I think that's it for today.
See you at 4:30, then we'll get on the record now.